Hello, and welcome back to the Design Plus podcast, where we get vulnerable, dig deep, spill the beans or the tea about all things work, career, designing your ideal lifestyle, and living an unboxed life as a creative, individualist, free spirit type person. I'm your host, career guide, and fellow rebel, Miriam Raquel Sands, Raquel for short. All right, so let's talk about what it takes in terms of the papers, the resources to even be able to job hop, build a business, do all of these things. Because I know I talk a lot about the mental, the emotional, maybe even some of the physical things going on in our bodies in order to take steps, proactive steps, defensive, offensive steps for our lives, our livelihoods. But I haven't really talked a lot about all of the other things that go into being able to do that, like what they call getting an education, which we can table that for another day, because is it really getting an education? What does that even mean? Like, we will have to untangle that whole web or that knot or whatever it is a whole other time. Because I will say, my mom, being an educator, having her degrees in that field and having lived and worked, pushed through, gotten into varieties of formats, private, charter, public, adult education, like in all of that, I think education is a whole other thing. And so what I will say is that, in the United States, and I'm sure in a lot of the Western countries, and maybe all over the world, this might be the premise. But the idea of going to school, and specifically undergraduate school, as the baseline, as a necessity, because without that, how does anyone start to get into a corporate, quote unquote, professional environment in order to then look qualified, be qualified to receive a laptop, to receive benefits, to receive a cubicle, a desk, to start to occupy the spaces and have the conversations with people that have power and that have more leeway, if we don't go through this one step first. And this one step is challenging because many of us, I for one, did not want to go to college. I didn't even know what that whole system of college looked like, how I was supposed to start to navigate it, how I was supposed to get into debt, what my focus was. Like, I was not set up to think about what I needed to be looking after in college. Like, my life when I was growing up was really about survival and figuring out how I was within my family, within my body, within my mind, my relationships. I was nowhere close to thinking about how am I supposed to be successful in future me, for future self, and be able to hold down a job and make certain income and have a certain status. Like, that was nowhere near my thought process. And by the time it did, it was probably junior year, which is 11th grade in the United States, of high school. And by that point, it was maybe too late to some extent, because I had already gone through all of the motions in the classes, and it's just kind of do what I can do to get to where I need to go. So again, sort of survival, make it up as I go sort of mentality and framework. And the same thing happened once I landed in college. But it was never this thing that I was always thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I know that I need to get done. Things just happened. And the weight that the society puts on these papers, on these artificial things that somehow provide substance. Like, money is a concept that we place emphasis and power on and give energy to so that we don't have to trade goods. We don't have to steal from each other. There is this currency, there's this thing that we can give each other in exchange that we have all agreed has value, and then be able to give that to each other so that we can obtain more things and experiences and whatever it may be. So the same, hopefully, process applies to education. If we spend, again, this value, this money, on this experience of going to school in order to somehow get wiser, get more knowledge in a certain field, then that will hopefully open doors for us in the future to then be able to make more money and add more value and wealth to our lives. But ultimately, the paper itself, the degree, the certificate, holds no value. The money, when we used to have paper coins and dollar bills and all of these things, maybe not paper coins, but when we used to have the physical objects of these things, that was the representation of all of the years of work, all of the trajectory it has taken for each of us to get to that point. And now, people have created the debit cards, and now you can just use your smartphone and you don't even need a card because there's Google Wallet, and now we don't even have the physical objects anymore. But still, the fact that all of this value is placed on these metaphorical, invisible things, how can we really objectify, or maybe that's not the word, but how can we measure knowledge? How can we really know when someone is wise and smart and has the experience, the expertise to perform a certain job or duty? How do we even know that? Especially knowing that it's not even about that half the time. Because when we start our roles, whatever the job or industry may be, we will get trained in that job. I'm sure that when someone is paying you to get something done, right, ideally, they are providing you the resources and support in order to get that done. Because we're not all familiar with the ins and outs of our jobs when we first start, regardless of how much experience we have. And then the other big piece is the relationship piece of how we operate and navigate, function with other people. That's a huge part of the job. I would say maybe even 80% of the job is being able to understand others, the emotional intelligence, how we function mentally and support ourselves, because everybody's in different places and situations and might not respond or work the same way. So regardless if we are apt and have the expertise to do the job, the whole component of working with other people is a whole other thing that we will still have to invest in and learn every time we are in a new role. So this thing about being educated and having a degree, some sort of a baseline, in some sense, is trying to create that kind of preliminary. You just need this one document or this one thing, because that one bachelor's will live on this other document called a resume, and it will take up one line. But that one line, those 5 words or however many words there are, is going to show the world that you have that requirement, that you have checked that box, and you can now fit in to whatever company, organization, and hopefully that box, those 4 words that you've chosen, somehow have given you the skills, the toolkit in order to do whatever job that you've been hired to do. Because a degree, like my degree is in English, which now people are using synonymously with communications or marketing or journalism, like all of that could be interchangeable, and we could all be using the same skills. So even the degree you have might not even matter as long as you have one. And this premise of getting a degree so that it can be on your resume, so that you can get the job or jobs, might sound like, that's great, because we're all trying to make sure that everybody's getting a good education. Everyone's trying to get kind of a good baseline while they're in college. They take different humanities and sciences and things like that. And then after having kind of their, college experience and figuring out different interests and parts of themselves, then they're ready to have a job that they've not been trained for, that they have no idea how the office politics, the bureaucracy hierarchy, how any of the tools really work. But yeah, because you have this degree that entitles you, that gives you some right, that gives you some leverage to then be able to work in a professional, corporate, whatever office. That doesn't make any sense to me. Because, again, how do we know when someone is educated, when someone has enough experience and wisdom? Technically, I think there's some quote out there that, or maybe it was Bruce Lee who said, I don't fear the person who's done 10,000 different kicks one time. I fear the person that's done one kick 10,000 times, because they've mastered that. So for me, that sounds like experience. That sounds like somebody who has practiced, who has endured, who has really honed in and harnessed that skill. Because why? Hopefully they're interested in it, they're passionate in it, they've been able to dive deep. Now, I know there's a lot of, maybe not a lot, but I know there's conversation now about being a specialist versus a generalist. I feel like I am definitely more in the generalist camp, that it's important to know a variety of things, or especially when you're starting out in your career and you're figuring out how you want to design your life. It's important to be wide and taking up space and not be so narrow and focused, because with time things will weed themselves out and naturally filter. And you still might not be super specialized or focused, but you will definitely not be as far-reaching as when you initially started. And so, while I appreciate Bruce Lee's comment and quote about getting one thing done spectacularly, honing in, I think ultimately it's speaking to experience and how a degree, in the conversation we're having today, is not experience. Just like another example, just like when somebody's getting their driver's license, they just have to pass a test, but hopefully they've done quite a few hours. I don't know what the different legalities and specifications are in different states and regions and such like that. But hopefully people have to do quite a few hours before they get behind the wheel of a car or motorcycle or whatever, because no way are they gonna just give you or give anyone a permit, a license, a paper, right? Another physical thing that represents something else to show that, oh yeah, this person knows what they're doing. So why would we do the same with education and career building? Like, how is somebody taking 4 years and half of those years, 2 of those years, are about just exploring and doing what the college thinks is essential, and then the other 2 years finally getting into the specifics, but it's still not applicable to work because people don't even know what they're looking into, what they're trying to achieve. So all of this is, I don't know, like a big salad or like some sort of soup. It's just all hanging out together. And don't get me wrong, salads and soups are delicious. But if we know why we're doing what we're doing, things make sense. If we know, if the society, ideally, if our families, if our friends and our environment support us in taking the time to figure out what we want first before just diving deep into getting a degree that doesn't make sense to us and the way we want to live our lives and the way we want to show up in our jobs, careers, how we want to make income, then getting a degree, getting in debt for that degree is going to set us back. Because sure, it is a comfort. I know that a lot of this is about safety and survival. So on the front side, it seems comforting to have a degree because you have something to fall back on. People say, that degree, you will always have that and be able to show, yeah, I did that thing, and that thing is my passport, is my ticket to being able to get a job. But again, you can't get the job if you don't have the experience. Just like the analogy with the car. Ideally, people don't give others licenses without knowing how to do the thing. But it's backwards in the education and the career field. They will give you the job, whether you are qualified or have the experience or not, but then it shows up real quick. It shows up real quick whether we know what we're doing or not, and then we start to fear and get anxiety and just have a miserable time because we're doing something that doesn't feel right, and we're probably in debt and trying to figure out the finances, and we're just thrown about all over again. We're in another salad and soup concoction. And it's all because we weren't able to really ask ourselves why. And then how. But the why, the meaning behind the thing, is critical, because if we don't know why we're doing the things we're doing, how is college really going to help us in the future? And how is studying that specific thing really going to be a fallback, really going to help us in the future? How is figuring out the job, the environment, like all of this is part of the why. And if we're not allowed, or we're not given the space if we're not taking the time to ask ourselves that question, then things get real hard, real fast. Because then the rest of our careers, and maybe going back to school and all of that, is in an effort to fill in the gaps, is an effort to support and erase or backtrack on our previous decisions. Because now we know what we didn't know. We've experienced, we've started doing things, we've entered the work corporate environment, and after graduating and having all these experiences, with experience comes knowledge. But just getting the degree does not give us the experience. It doesn't give us the real pulp, the real juice, the real information, the substance. It gives us a lot of facts and figures, and it's great to be able to be exposed, hopefully, possibly, to a lot of different ideas and people and all of that. But if none of that is helping us be of service to ourselves, and then in us being of service to ourselves, we are then being of service to others in our community and so forth, the ripple effect, then what are we doing it for? To please others? To check a box? To feel safe? To survive? I get it, because I did that. But this is why experience and me looking back, I would have been very happy to just take a vocation, do some sort of trade school, get a tangible skill. Not to say that my skills now aren't tangible, but it's taken me 10 years to get here. I feel like maybe the newer generations who are YouTubers, who are freelancers, who are taking things in their own time, partly because they have to, because the economy doesn't support getting so in debt and living in a outdated way. But for those in the newer generation who really do take their time to develop their skills, learn how to be creative, find out what that means for them, find out how they really enjoy living and showing up and with who, like, that is key, because those are the things that we all are working towards in all our living. And come to understand, it just takes longer because we had to get over that hurdle of getting educated first, of getting a degree first, in order to check a box that, maybe has helped us in the initial, and maybe has helped us a lot in our path, but it doesn't guarantee the path. It might not be supporting our future. And for most of us, it's probably an outdated way of living and figuring things out in this world. So, in summary, all of that salad and soup is to say that going to college and getting a degree is not bad in and of itself. Just like money is not inherently bad, and driving and all of these other analogies I've used. The problem is not asking the questions, not diving deep, and not experiencing ourselves, being able to really see what is coming out of us, what we really want to be experiencing, and giving ourselves the time to do that. Now, I know that's hard. Not all of us have or had that opportunity to explore and to experience different environments and people and possibilities. But now, if you're exploring now and you're trying to figure out these things for yourself now, I would say in any way that you can, big or small, start to ask yourself these questions of why. Why did I get that degree and I'm feeling like I'm stuck? It's not helping me get anywhere. Why am I in this job or in this industry, this career, and I'm not where I want to be? Why am I doing these things? Like asking yourself why. And if you're not happy with the answers or with your situation, whatever it may be, start to take the time, make the time, create the space and opportunities for you to be able to experience something different. Job hop, freelance, start a business or a passion project, a hobby. Start to explore other interests and see if you can use some of your transferable skills. See how you can set yourself up for the next stage in your life so that all of those outdated models and systems can eventually die and be reborn into something else. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in and listening. If you liked what you heard and would like to get more insight or support from me, check out my website at MiriamRaquelSands.com. You can also find me in all of the social places at my handle at MiriamRaquelSands, or leave a comment down below. Until next time, take a breath, take it easy, love yourself, hug yourself, and be well. Bye.